Fromber wins the battle of the aces again versus Ohtani. Fromber's ERA down to 2.16. Javier down to 2.84. Are these guys the best 1-2 punch in the AL as far as rotation goes?
Well, as the best healthy start to this point in the season 1-2 punch, I'd be curious to hear who the counter argument would be. Toronto has Gossman, and Alek Manoah's been terrible. Jose Barrios is coming on like gangbusters, but his season ERA is still in the upper fours. Garrett Cole and Yankees out. Tristan McKenzie, who the Astros will see this coming weekend in Cleveland. He's a stud, but just made his first start of the season coming back from injury. Shane Bieber's been okay. Nathan Eovaldi and John Gray with the Rangers, maybe the top competition. But Fromber, who had lousy run support and couldn't buy wins early in the season. Last year he set the record of consecutive quality starts. And not that there's anything wrong with a 2.84 ERA, but he's better than that guy. Right? He's gotten touched up a time or two, so he's not going to have 26 consecutive quality starts or whatever the final number was. But Fromber's pitching like a heart attack serious Cy Young candidate. Javier a cut below, but absolutely pitching like a quality number 2.
Yeah, these guys have been fantastic. And it's not just them. We got to get into what these other guys on the staff are doing too. JP France has been terrific. Belak has been way better than I anticipated. It's pretty impressive what the Astros are able to accomplish, and even Blanco comes up here and Dana Brown, really smart of him. A couple months ago, he talked about stretching out Blanco and saw some stuff in spring training like, hey, maybe this guy can do some starting pitching. He goes 5 innings, 5 1/3 innings in his 2 previous Sugarland starts, and then goes to the bigs and comes through for you. So really, really fantastic job, Astros. They're keeping you in ball games. Even the France game where he wasn't good and he gave up 6 runs, we didn't lose that game. They kept it close enough. So if they can continue to do that, if the bats start to slowly improve, I like where this is headed.
Credit to all, but of course about staying power, body of work. For years, the Astros, when they had good teams, when they'd see a pitcher for the first time, for whatever reason, they'd struggle to put up runs. First time around, the pitcher is generally considered to have the advantage versus the hitter when they haven't seen each other before. A big part of racking up 95 wins, 100 wins, is taking out the trash. Right? The Astros have pummeled the American League West through the years. So after being 17-18, they start this week on an 18-6 run. But we need to be mindful they've been taking out a lot of trash. They faced nothing but below average offenses over these 24 games, with the exception of the Angels. Right? They got 6 games in against the A's, which are great stat patters, and they ran a table in those 6. The only 2 good teams, using it loosely, the Brewers are in first place, the Twins are in first place. Neither has a good offense. So, when you face teams like the Blue Jays and the Rangers and the Orioles and the Yankees, then we'll learn a lot more about the Astros second-tier starting pitching.
Yeah, and it's one thing to have good regular season stats, but Fromber and Javier are both postseason proven, which I think is really important, because especially when you're talking about, a guy like Fromber, where you talk about just a hammer, especially in the postseason, where, just as an example, we've told this story, and if you watch any of these podcasts, you'll know this, but when we were looking at last season, we were in the World Series and we were doing these podcasts live, Josh and I, we were looking at, kind of the schedule after game 3. We looked at it and it was like, it doesn't matter how many scores you run in any individual game, because this isn't soccer. It's not aggregated points. You just have to win game by game. And you looked at how the game slated up, and you saw Fromber was sitting there in game 6 at home, and you just had to feel good about it. And you knew all you got to do is win the 2 remaining games in Philly, and you could come back and you had Fromber at home, and that would be big for you. And it turned out to be the game clinching or the clinching game for you. And that's a guy you can really count on, is just a guy on Fromber, where he's not just a guy who's regular season proven, he is postseason proven. And both he and Javier, we're not even talking about the guy who, in Javier, who had a no-hitter in the World Series. So those 2 guys, and even a guy like Jose Urquidy, who's on the shelf right now, also a guy with playoff experience. So I think it's, when you're looking at who the best 1-2 starters are, it's one thing to put these regular season stats and ERA and kind of compare them, but the real postseason production is where the rubber hits the road for these guys. And when we talk about the offense and the unexpected sources where you're getting offense, Charlie, you made a good point in saying that it's relative. But Josh, to your point, the contributions you're getting from France and Belak, I mean, if you had said, you're going to not get McCullers back, and then you're also going to lose Garcia for the season and lose Urquidy for at least a month, there's no way that you're going to say, well, at least they'll still have the best ERA in majors. And yet here they are. Charlie, how long can they tread water? How long can they continue to perform at this level, having lost so many of their starters?
France's stuff is legit to me. It's all about command. And as we've discussed here in the past, right through his minor league career, he walked more than 4 guys per 9 innings. He's pretty much walking 1 guy per start as an Astro. I mean, he'll get cuffed around some because who doesn't at some point? I'm not a Belak believer. I'm a little curious with the increased usage of the changeup. Is he onto something there? But I doubt it's going to revolutionize his career. Still a lot of traffic on the bases. Again, he has not faced a murderer's row of lineups to this point as a fill-in. I think you need to be looking to upgrade over Belak. Well, maybe that's Urquidy at the All-Star break, or maybe Dana Brown starts making his bones by coming up with an innings-eating starting pitcher for the back end of their rotation. Maybe Lance McCullers gets healthy. Yeah, let's move on. But they're dealing from overall strength, right? They have the number 1 earned run average in Major League Baseball, and as you enumerated the losses and the fill-ins, that's just damn impressive. The bullpen not as airtight as last year, but still top 3 in the major leagues in earned run average. It's just hold your breath, cross your fingers that they don't lose either Framber or Javier, because that I do not think that they could overcome.
Yeah, I'm with Charlie there on the walks being a big deal. Even with Javier, he didn't walk anybody in this past game. He's gotten that under control a little bit. That used to be kind of a bugaboo for Christian Javier. He'd walk a few guys, shoulder would fly open, and then you give up a couple hits and it's a big inning. He's been able to reel that in, and JP France not walking guys. That's big too, especially when you're a rookie, you're coming up. Just don't let the little things, the easy things beat you. If you can impress your teammates, like, hey, I'm not going to walk a bunch of people. I'm going to make them earn it. I'm going to work quick here. And, you're going to locate. And those changeups have been great. As much as we make fun of Maldi for, calling games and how much does that matter, it seems to be working with the young guys.
And and you can give up a solo homer here and there, but you walk a couple guys and then hang a pitch. You can be wild in the strike zone as well as outside the strike zone. So long with just the overall effectiveness and not giving up big innings, keeping your team in the game while lasting a little bit longer. Yeah. It's been an issue for Lance McCullers when healthy through his career that, hey, he threw 5 pretty good innings, but it took him 103 pitches, and you're already into your bullpen. And to dovetail this with the prior topic, I mean, Framber gets you to the 7th inning, virtually every start guaranteed. Javier's at least a solid 6. And so, your bullpen is good, right? Last year, the Astros led the world in innings thrown by their starting pitchers. They rank right near the top of the class again in that category. So it's a really good pitching staff. You can't do it by smoke and mirrors and have the best team ERA in baseball.
And Josh, to your point about Javier's efficiency, his whip is under 1. So you can't ask anything more of Christian Javier at this point. Charlie, you mentioned Dana Brown. He was speaking with MLB Network, I believe, over the weekend, and they were talking about possible moves. He spoke about how they had been examining moves for pitchers because of all the things that's happened, but the performance by the call-ups, they're now considering maybe they should get a bat. I mean, you need both. Honestly, if we're looking at what needs are, but are you ready, looking at what you have and looking at who you're going to get back and possibly get back? Are you ready to say they don't need some pitching depth? Because you kind of mentioned it. You can't afford to lose any one of your 2 top line starters. It would seem like pitching may still be the greater priority, or is it not? What do you think?
Well, it is. a conundrum in that the pitching's obviously been the strength of this team. And while it's not House of Cardsy, you're an injury away from it being House of Cardsy. And can you count on Urquidy getting back and pitching well? Who knows with McCullers? But we know the lineup's not that good. I'll throw one. Oh my God, they made that. You know, that Jeff Luhnow pulled it off, and you'd go, well, yeah, you knew he was going to do something. The Cardinals stink. A lot of the National League stinks, but the Cardinals so far, they really stink. If they stink for another month, Paul Goldschmidt would be the perfect Astros addition. If he was put on the market, the Astros, the state of their farm system, I don't think they could make the best bid, but grew up in the Woodlands, went and played at then Southwest Texas State. Hell of a player, borderline Hall of Famer, last season's MVP, but 35 years old, having another good year, free agent after next season. Right, the Astros at first base right now. You need to frame Jose Abreu for a white-collar crime that wouldn't, put him in jail, but would enable the Astros to void the contract. But you drop Paul Goldschmidt in the middle of the lineup. The Cardinals decide to pull the plug and see what they can get in return for a 36-year-old player. That's borderline fantasy island stuff. But you said the name game. If you're looking for a bat, you want to play go big or go home. You can't get any bigger than getting a current MVP.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about if they do go pitching, one of the White Sox guys, maybe Cease or Giolito, that's out there. That's reasonable. I love Charlie's idea. I'd love to see Goldschmidt come here. Please make that happen if you have any connections there, Charlie. See what you can do.